Well, hey everybody, it is Romania Black, and this feels so weird. It's the last episode of Gunbuster. What? It feels so crazy that this is our last episode. But yeah, we're on episode 6. How we got here, it's been a very quick 6 weeks. And just to let you all know, I did a poll on Patreon. I am not watching the movie or the sequel series as of yet. I usually keep track of series that I've watched that have sequel series or have seasons that I haven't watched yet. So who knows? It might come back around and be on a poll later on. And so, if you subscribe on Patreon, you might see it come up if you subscribe for the $1, it'll come up in the polls at some point and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know when, but maybe one day I'll get to watch it. Who knows? But as a whole, I want to talk more about the series when we get through this last episode as a whole and what I think about it. But I've really enjoyed this series. I honestly have, and I'm going to be really sad that it's over. I didn't expect to get as attached as I have to this series. Now I'm like, well, shit, I really enjoyed this. This was a fun time watching week to week. But I've got some comments I want to talk about, and then Sunspots, fellow patron and moderator for this series for me. Thank you, Sunspots, so much. I'll be thanking you again by the end of this video. They supplied me with the science lessons, so I'm going to be reacting to that this episode when we're done with episode 6 and we're through the discussion. I'll have a timestamp somewhere in this video that'll show where those science lessons reactions are going to be, but we're going to look at those. So that's really exciting, and I have some context for them. There's 3 different sets. I'm excited. I'm prepared for today. But yeah, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments for episodes 5 and 6 and see what y'all think about it. But I do have some comments from episode 4 and from the Discord that I want to talk about before we dive into this episode. I did want to make a note. When I went back and rewatched episode 5, Noriko, I thought it was interesting how Noriko was persuaded by the loss of her crush, Old Smith Torrin, back in episode 4 to take charge. And here, she has to have in episode 5 the talk with Amano to talk her off the ledge from going crazy at the thought of losing her crush Oda. So maybe it was a good thing that Noriko didn't fully realize her crush till afterwards. Maybe in hindsight that was better, right? So we'll see. But yeah, so H Banana 7 for episode 4 says it's hilarious how physics play a big part in space battles, but also it's all about the horny faith in swimsuit designs. Yeah, that triangular swim top of Zheng defying gravity. Absolutely. Bestial Moon says for episode 4, man, this miniseries is so good. I agree 100%. It gave Noriko a full character arc in 4 episodes that most anime take at least triple the amount to get through. Agreed. The pacing of Noriko's character development, mwah, beautiful. As an added note, this episode is the start of what is now referred to as the Gainax pose. The crossed arms, legs planted, confident stance on the battlefield. Originally a love letter to a small scene in a much older robot anime called Getter Robo, Gainax and later Studio Trigger would reuse this pose in different anime down the road. It's always a great treat to see pop up. I love that so much. So now, of course, we see it in Evangelion, obviously. But I like the idea that it's kind of like the Kira bike slide, that it's just going to be something that's going to pop up later in other series. I think that's really cool. But yeah, I absolutely love that. I love Noriko's character development. I love everything about it. But thank you for pointing that out, Bestial Moon. And then Sunspots says, I really like the way they portrayed Noriko overall. There's always a cost to being a mecha pilot. And I really like the fact that here it's the more of a hero she becomes, the more of a distance there is between her and everyone else. Yeah, I kind of thought that, and I wanted to add on to that because, last episode, Sunspots was commenting about episode 4. Last week we saw how different she was from Kimiko. Kimiko has a family, she's a mom, she has this home life, and that seems something that is so foreign to Noriko, right? She's like, it doesn't seem like Noriko can accept that even being a thing. And I thought about it, and something that's really cool about Noriko is she kind of gets the plot of a lot of male protagonists in battle anime. If you think about it, like, I think of, I don't want to say some of these anime because it'll spoil some things, but there are some anime I think about where early on, the male protagonist loses the love interest. Like the love interest dies, or the love interest is incapacitated or is no longer with them. And they are kind of like, they brood throughout the rest of the series, and it kind of changes them into who they become later on. And usually it's a role that is usually dedicated and designated to a male character. And Noriko kind of takes on this stoic, like, I don't need no man because I lost mine in space years ago. So I'm like, I don't know if she'll ever find love after this. I kept thinking last episode it was going to be Oda making a move, but then Oda and Amano got together. Amano and Oda are a thing. So it's like, maybe Noriko won't ever get someone. She'll just be this stoic fighter out in space on the battlefield with the Gunbuster. I don't know. I don't know what this last episode is going to give us. It's almost a 30-minute episode, which is wild. But yeah. And then Lyndon over on the Discord said, from an interview with Anno, I really hated the original Gunbuster project proposal. There was a proposal to make it about a shortcut to the moon or something, and all the settings were just discarded afterwards. I didn't even go to the company for a while. Then one day, I stopped by and happened to see the script lying around. I didn't even read it for a while, I just ignored it. Eventually, when I had some spare time, I read it out of boredom. Honestly, I already knew the gist, so I didn't like the first draft at all. It felt like some silly parody, and I thought, what's the point of this? But the second script was pretty good. It had the quality of a real science fiction story. Especially the ending with Noriko returning. I don't know what that means, Lyndon. I hope that's not a spoiler. After reading the script, I started to change my mind. The director had already dropped out by that point, so I asked, can I do it? And they said, well, if no one else is doing it, then go ahead. But I didn't think I was suited to be a director. I really had nothing to do at the time. I wasn't animating and I wasn't doing much of anything. As an animator, I was no good. I wanted to take animation seriously. And if I was going to make a proper work, I thought I'd try doing a giant robot piece. There's a lot of things set up with this with Anno. The idea of Anno's psychological state, which we will see in full force in Neon Genesis. The idea of doing a giant robot story and that being where he finds his comfort as a director and all of this. And just the fact that it all worked out. That sometimes fate is funny because you don't even think about it. And this one random project that no one wanted to do or had faith in, and Anno's like, I guess I'll do it. And that sent a trajectory into so many different parts of anime, not only for Anno, but for other people and for the industry and for animation and references and everything. It kind of blows my mind. It kind of blows my mind. I love stuff like that. That's really, really cool. But yeah, so thank you, Lyndon, for sharing that. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say before we get started. Thank you all so much for supporting me and watching this series, because it won on the Wheel of Fate and I didn't know what would happen with it. So I'm really excited that it won and that it's, going to be something that we're going to watch. So that's super exciting. But anyway, so I'm excited to see what we get. I hope you all are as well. But I guess we're not going to waste any more time. We're almost 10 minutes into this. So I hope you all enjoy this final episode. It's nearly 30 minutes, which is wild. And then we'll have the science lesson shorts to watch after it. I don't know what to expect, but we'll just have to wait and see what we get. So in any case, thank you all so much for watching with me. We're going to check out episode 6, the final episode of Gunbuster. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and I'll see you all on the other side. Wow, what a finale. I had to get Whiteboard Kun out and I had to do some math because I was like, okay, we need to break down, because damn, Anno, when do you think a woman's life trajectory ends? Like mid-50s? We're treating these women like they're ancient. They're just having a midlife crisis. Come on now. Oh man. What a very Anno ending. I'm glad I watched Neon Genesis Evangelion before watching this series, because even though Neon Genesis came out after this and this is the predecessor, I feel like this episode in particular was very much an experiment of what can Anno get away with that we'll be okay with? And I feel like this tested the waters, and then the studio was like, if you want to run a series, you can. And Anno was like, yes. And then it all went crazy from there. Because, yeah, I feel like there's like little moments in this, like the fact that it was all in black and white the entire episode. I was like, okay, that feels like just, and black and white for no reason. There's no reason for it to be black and white. There's no reason. It just is. Because Anno wanted it to be. I mean, you could say it has a timeless feel to it because this episode is at the end of eternity. You could say it has a timeless feel to it, but no. I kept waiting for it to become color. I kept waiting for it to become color. That did not happen, and I was like, okay, this is Anno's choice to make it all in black and white, add some drama to it. Okay. Which I am a little bit sad about because I wanted it to like turn color at some point because the colors in this series, one thing I've loved about Gunbuster is I was expecting for it to be a mech series, for it to feel very cold and metallic and kind of like just devoid of warmth. But there has been such color and vibrancy to this series that I wasn't expecting, that I really, really, really liked. And this episode kind of like just stripped that all away and said, okay, we don't need that. And it's like, oh, but I would love if there was a director's cut with it color. I would love if there was a color version of it. Although after seeing it this way, it would probably feel like when you watch those old movies, those old Western movies from like the 1940s, and then they do the colorized versions of them where they just like color in the cells. It doesn't feel right. And I'd probably feel the same way if somebody did it for this one. But so we start in 2048. We jump to the future. And then Koichi Oda, December 19th, 2033. So he lived long enough for them to be married and for them to get it on, and then he kicked the bucket. One thing I'm very glad about in this series is they didn't give Amano a kid. Not that I have anything wrong against children. I think it's fine when characters at the end of the day have kids. But for Amano to be possibly going on a do or die mission into space and leaving a kid behind, if that would feel cliche. That would feel cliche. And so I'm glad that the only child that was left behind was Noriko at the beginning, and she's now, rectifying that. So I feel like it was a good decision to not have them have either of them have a kid. And then at the end, Jung kind of becomes like Oda, where Amano and Noriko are like, nope, we're saving you. You go back. We'll take care of this. And Jung kind of becomes the new Oda, which, furthers the cycle in that sense. So interesting. I'm going to be very curious. I don't want the answer to this question as I'm saying it. I'm just posing it rhetorically because I may go and watch Die Buster in the movie later on. But I wonder if Die Buster takes place, 12,000 years in the future. And that's how they get involved and meet Noriko and Amano when they come back to Earth, if that's kind of the situation. I could see that being the case where Die Buster takes place 12,000 years in the future and they meet Amano and Noriko through that way. I could see that, but I don't know. This series is kind of so perfect. It's kind of so perfect. It ends with them destroying the monsters, and then 12,000 years later, Earth is still around and it's okay. It's one of those series, I'm like, it's like lightning in a bottle. I don't know if doing a sequel and doing the movie would do it justice unless the movie was like a prequel or something else, or was an expansion upon stuff that's happening in this series. I don't know, because I really, really love how this ends. And it leaves some things ambiguous. There's weird oddities. It's just, I don't know how I feel about a sequel series. I can understand why people voted in the survey on Patreon for me not to watch the sequel series right now, because this one ends so well. But yeah, so, okay, we're going to break down this just a little bit. I actually think Amano looks her best in this episode. Amano looked pretty with the long hair, don't get me wrong, but she looks gorgeous. Like in her 40s, short hair. She looks like freaking, she has the Demi Moore haircut of the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s from freaking Ghost. Like make Oda Patrick Swayze, and we got it. She looks fabulous. She looks beautiful. She looks mature, gorgeous. Why did they let her keep the cool Mortal Kombat suit? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the male gaze in this episode because... Well, yes. So, okay, timeline. I did look up how old Amano was because I needed to know to make this timeline work. And I did look up when she was born. She was born in 2004, and Noriko was born 2005. So, what we have here, I think so. Yes. Yes. So, we have Takaya. Her dad dies in 2015. 4 years later, when she's 14, she enrolls at the high school in 2019. In 2022 is when they actually do the mission in space, which is episode 4's deal. So she's 17 when that happens, and Amano is 18. Okay? Which then in 2032, that's when they technically come back to Earth, and Noriko is still technically 18. Amano's technically 18. Well, Noriko's 17. Amano's technically 18. Kimiko in 2032 is 27. So then a year later, when Amano is 19, she marries Oda, and do with what you will with that age gap, but I'll let it slide because Amano's 19. But then 2048, which is now, so if Amano stayed on the planet, which it seems that's what she did, she stayed on the planet to kind of take over for Oda there at the academy, which, look, the principal gets to hang out with her after that. She's only 44 in this part here. She calls herself old. I'm like, girl, you're 44. I mean, by Hollywood standards, maybe, but you're not old at all. I'm like, J-Lo's having kids after you, girl. And then Kimiko and the one girl, Kishiwara, who's now the principal, they're only 53 and 54, y'all. This movie, this final episode would have you think that Kimiko is 2 steps into the grave. Like, she's 53. I'm like, my mother's 60 and she's still pretty young and spry. I was like, damn. I was like, they had me out to think that Kimiko was about to like step in the coffin and be like, see ya, Noriko. Tell them you won't see, which I get what she means. When she's like, you were only gone for 6 months for you is 15 years for me. So if you stay in space another 6 months, I'll be in my 70s. So in that respect, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But the way that it kind of was presented at the beginning, it's like Kimiko's like, take care of my daughter. Hope you see her before she dies. I'll be gone. It's like, you're only 50, girl. But yeah, the time warp continuum stuff is just absolutely insane. And I love that Amano says, my love, my coach. I love it. And then Kashiwara, I mean, she's in her 50s. Sure, she looks in her 50s, but I'm like, you ladies ain't ready for the grave yet. God. I'm like, all the modern technology of 2048 and mid-50s is as good as we're doing it. I do love that Amano stayed behind and coached the kids, and they called it Soul's Last Stand. And she's like, I'm only here because of Noriko, who kept the Earth safe. And of course, Amano has like all of this love for Noriko because Noriko kept her, you know. If it wasn't for Noriko, Amano wouldn't have got to marry Oda and she wouldn't have saw him again. And so she owes Amano an awful lot. Now, if you want to ship Amano and Noriko romantically, you go right ahead. You go right ahead. If you wanted to ship Jung with her unrequited love towards Amano and the coach, you go right ahead. Sure, if you want to ship Jung and Noriko, you go right ahead. You can do all sorts of shipping in this, right? 'Tis the month of love, of course. Now, you all, if you've not watched my Ace of the Diamond reactions, will not know how that little stupid bundle of cranes made me cry in that series. It did. I sobbed tears over those silly cranes, those farewell cranes, those good luck cranes. I sobbed tears over that. So when I saw that, I was like, how dare you, show? But I do love that Kimiko's daughter is like really good friends with Amano, and she gives the card to give Noriko. The card that Tamaki, the card that Tamaki gives Noriko that is a direct mirror of the birthday card she gave her dad. Mwah, cinema. That was so good. I loved that. I loved that now Noriko knows how her father felt, and she knows the full weight of staying behind and saving humanity. Because essentially, yeah, they don't commit suicide, but essentially Amano and Noriko are like, we're going to stay behind to make sure that this bomb lands to destroy all of the space monsters. But even though we will live, quote unquote, we're never going to see any of you again. Because by the time we get back around, there will be so much time pass. My question is, in all of this, did it just jettison them back to Earth and it happened to be 12,000 years? Because how did they have Snickers stocked up in that Gunbuster? How did they feed themselves and take care of themselves for that amount of time? I'm hoping one of these science lessons is going to explain that we're going to watch here in a little bit. I hope that's the case, because I was like, how did they manage to survive without food and water, you know? But yeah, so the final episode at the end of eternity. Okay, so we find out the shock waves. I joked about Hawaii being undamaged because it's Hawaii. But the shock wave from 15 years ago did cause damage to parts of the planet, and we got that talked about in this episode. So they're at the ropeway base in Hawaii, and she gets in there. Now, she walks on that damn ship in a suit, a trench coat with all the regalia, same as a clerk for Project Carnates, like same as the clerk, this clerk who should be in Attack on Titan. She walks on there in the same uniform. Why did she have to get changed twice? Show? Why? We all know why. It was for the boobs. But still, you know, it was like, come on. None of these men are walking around in Speedos. I demand equity. I demand equity. I want them in crop tops and Speedos so that they will know how these women feel. But nope, none of that. So as they're going towards the Meridian Star, which is the space station, they talk about, we see Australia, and like Australia has like all these cracks in it and everything from the shockwave, like affecting it. Poor Australia. As if Australia wasn't terrifying enough. Everything was used to build the black hole bomb. There's nothing to spare, even 15 years later. The supergravitational collapse near Jupiter 2 lasted 60 seconds. And getting away with a shift in Earth's axis, they lost 3 planets. And they were lucky. I like that this guy, we have and my dog's like, play with me, damn it. I like that in the midst of all this, this clerk decides that we need to have the existential talk about the morality of what we're about to do. I kind of like it. I like that he has this conversation. I wish we'd spent more time on it, honestly, but I get that they're like, we're just going to bring it up because somebody would have probably brought it up throughout this time frame. He's like, the plan to swallow up the nest along with the core of the galaxy. I like that he says, do we really have the right to do that? He goes all full Malcolm here from Jurassic Park, being like, just because we can, should we? He's like, we're going to kill the galaxy. And she's like, well, if we don't, we're going to die. And it's like, if we don't kill the galaxy, you know, should we just sit quietly and accept our fate? We'd be choosing suicide. She's like, I don't know if it's the right decision or not, and history will be the judge of us. But right now, survival is all we can strive for. I find it interesting we're having this moral conversation about using a bomb that could destroy the galaxy, and it seems pretty topical, especially considering this was created in the late 80s around the time of the Cold War. Seems topical. But yeah, I mean, it is a good conversation to have. Apparently Earth is still around 12,000 years later, so even though it was destroying the core of the galaxy, I guess it all worked out in the end. So we can assume, I suppose, we don't know exactly what Earth looks like now. We don't get to see that, which I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad we don't get to see what Earth looks like, because I wondered about that. Like, if they went back, was it going to be a desolate wasteland? Were like the Earthling is going to look totally different after 12,000 years? You would imagine they would. I mean, 12,000 years, it's a lot of time for evolutionary changes, but I don't know. I'm glad we don't get to see it. I'm glad they leave that to our imagination, right? So this black hole bomb, it looks like an earbud. That's the safe choice of what it looks like. It looks like a pair of earbuds that are connected together. Does it look like some kind of vibrating sex toy? Maybe. Maybe. If we're gonna go, did the alien space monsters look kind of phallic against it? Maybe. Who knows? It's my mind in the gutter, possibly. But yeah, it's such a cool design, though. And then Sagittarius, the center of the galaxy. So all these ships, everything is advancing towards it. We get on the main bridge, and there is Noriko and Jung. I like that Jung hasn't changed. Jung is like exactly the same, but Noriko has grown her hair out. I always love it when there's a time skip and one of the characters that's grown their hair out and the other one's cut it short. I like that. It's a nice little, which Noriko's hair is not nearly as long as Amano's was, but still. So they talk basically about the idea that she's like, you called, and it's like, yes, we've given up evacuating Earth, and now Project Carnades calls us to fight the space monsters. So basically they decided not to evacuate Earth, which good for Kimiko and her daughter. They can stay together, but now they're going to fight these space monsters. And so basically instead of evacuating Earth, they decided to just blow up all the space monsters. Right? Now, again, we have Amano showing up in this badass like outfit, and she's there, like, she looks amazing. She looks incredible. 44 looks great on her. She has the Demi Moore haircut. She's got this like neckline with the boob window, but it looks classy. Like, and if you'll notice, like, her hips and stuff, it's not totally, she's got thigh-high boots on. Girl looks incredible. Why didn't she get to keep that suit? Why'd they make her change into it in the first place if they were going to make her change into her old space outfit when she got on board? Boo. They should have just kept her in the outfit. It looked great on her. Or been like, hey, we have these new suits. That you could wear, Noriko. Why don't you wear those? So yeah, the giant bomb is huge. Like, insanely big. It's so massive. And they're like, okay, you know, we're just going to blow up the core of the Milky Way. No big deal. So then Shizuo shows up, and Jung and Noriko see how much she's aged. That she's now 44, even though Noriko's still like 18. No, it's crazy. So I wanted to go back and look at these pictures, because we have Noriko as a little kid. We've got, looks like her and her mom, her and her dad. We see her and all her classmates. We see them like at the high school. We see the graduating class that she's with. And then we look over, and there's Oda with Jung and all three of them. There's a little picture of Oda smiling with Noriko. That's super cute. And there's like all of them on a car. It looks like there's Oda and Amano and all of them. There's the wedding photo of Amano and Oda. There's Noriko and Kimiko. All of those, yep. And then there's one of Kimiko and like her baby daughter there. Interesting. It looks like there's a picture of Smith Torin that's buried beneath a picture of Noriko. There's like a little tiny picture of Smith. You can see it. You can see it buried. That's really sweet. Damn. I'd put that front and center, girl. Maybe she doesn't want questions asked. Also, I like that there's still like the Totoro poster on there. It was 15 years ago. And for you, it was only 6 months. I feel bad when Noriko starts to cry, because she's like, you know, she's like, I got old and now it's just melancholy. I hate that she feels kind of sad that she's missed out. And now Amano's aged and she's still the same. That would feel really crazy. That gives it kind of like a Doctor Who sort of timeless vibe. Also, you know what the ending of this series reminded me of? And I will say the title of the series, but I can't say any more because it would be a spoiler. Land of the Lustrous. If you've not read Land of the Lustrous, when you're done watching this video, go start reading it. If you want to watch the series on the channel, it's on my channel. But Land of the Lustrous, there's a connection to this. And I was like, damn, I wonder if that mangaka has watched Gunbuster or not, because it did feel kind of similar. Especially like the timeline of this episode reminded me a lot of Land of the Lustrous. So yeah, and then Noriko gets the card. She's like, before my time's up, make it back while my daughter's still alive, won't you? I'm like, damn. Like, poor Noriko. Just makes her feel so sad. I loved her little braid, though. It was cute. So then we have this space battle, and there's this dolphin roaming around that has like a telekinetic helmet on it. It has like a little number 6 that says B. I want that dolphin. Why is that only in like one frame? I wanted it in the whole damn series. I want these animals that can move about on the spaceship. And then we start this space battle. And Jung slaps her and says, the coach was yours. And the Buster machine is too. It can wait till tomorrow with whatever else I have to say. I like that she said that because it made it seem like they weren't going to die. Because she's like, I'm not going to tell you everything now because I want to live till tomorrow. And it's not exactly how it goes down, but I loved everything about the space battle. I loved them with all the scientific terms going about, and then all the space monsters coming out. And Noriko's like, we're all making this come full circle. I loved it. It was so good. And then, yeah, all the monsters show up and a space battle begins. One thing I like about Gunbuster is that Anno understands that this series is a mech series. It is about the space battles, but you can only do so much with these space monsters without it getting repetitive. You can only do so much. And Anno's like, okay, this is our third space battle. So having the bomb stall and Gunbuster having to go into literally the core of Jupiter, what the fudge, to ignite it is different and new and interesting. But Anno's like, I don't want to give you just the same space battle over again because we've already had that. So instead, Anno's like, what if we just got really artistic and just showed you a montage of the battle, but through a very artistic flair? So it's just all these drawings and sketches and like little animated bits and pieces. It looks very artistic and stylistic, and I enjoy it. It feels very behind the scenes, but Anno's like, look, this is what it is. Y'all have seen a space battle before. We've shown you plenty by now. Here's what you got. And then we're going to move to where we're getting close to the core and all of that. So yeah, he's like, I'm not going to waste your time. Everything's still operational, but oh my God. All of the losses in this one battle, like they talked about 23,000 people being lost, and even with all of the ship casualties, like 5,000 ships taken out, there's still like 2,500 other ships. It's insane. It's insane over the 15 years they've amassed all this. But then again, there are like 12 billion space monsters, so they just multiplied like crazy. I loved also the shots of all the debris just flying around, like the debris of the space monsters, the debris of the spaceships. It was wild. I loved seeing it. It's all these tiny details. So yeah, so they managed to make it operational, but then they decided that they needed to propel the generator to get it started, and so that's when they decided to use Gunbuster. Otherwise, this one captain, he was like, well, we tried. I was like, that's all you're gonna do, sir? He's like, oh, we failed. Well, shit. I guess we'll just sit here and die. I was like, no! And that's when Noriko's like, we're going in. We're not gonna, the miracle's gonna happen. We're gonna make it happen. I like they had this like pseudo-religious discussion on the deck of the ship. And the one guy was like, I'm kind of agnostic. I don't really believe in anything. And the other guy's like, well, I do believe in miracles and I believe in God. And this is the thing. And when they fail and he talks about why would God let this happen? Like, I thought, why would this happen? And the guy's like, well, I guess he abandoned us. But then Noriko says, no, it's not that he abandoned us. We can't rely on miracles to just happen. Somebody has to make the miracle happen. And Noriko's like, that's going to be us. And I liked that message of there is the possibility of miracles, but you can't just idly sit by and do nothing. So yeah, so basically Noriko and Amano decide to be like Luke Skywalker and go and, shoot into the Death Star to make it blow up. That's essentially what we're doing, which is fine. And then Zheng was gonna go down in there. And at the beginning when Zheng was going down in there, I was a little worried about Zheng because I thought, okay, her Gunbuster is breaking up. Is she gonna die? Is she gonna sacrifice herself so that the bomb will go off and they can get out of there? That's not what ends up happening. Zheng ends up going back. But also, just gonna say, whenever they first showed the communications and Noriko and them were like being able to be seen by the captain and everything, it was kind of awkward because they were having this like final farewell speech to each other and the captain and the men are just on the bridge just like, should we be watching this? I'm glad now that communications were cut so they didn't see Noriko expose herself across the ship's deck. What would Smith think? So yeah. And then she goes back. She's like, it could take decades or centuries before you guys get out of here. Or, thousands of decades. And they're like, yeah, we know. But our time will always be shared. And know that we are going to get out of here. We will see you all again when you get back. Oh, I love that. Oh, my dog, of course. I'm giving you the biggest welcome back. Now, of course, the question is, with the biggest welcome back, did Jung set it in motion? Did Jung keep this? Because honestly, if you think about it, 12,000 years for oral history is a long time. We don't know what that is like. We've not had like written language like that, I think, for 12,000 years. So we don't have a clue what that's like. So did Jung keep the story going centuries after centuries, like tradition after tradition, so that people would know to welcome them back? I don't know. But yeah, then the comms go out and they get down to the bottom to the core slave generator. Now, I understand that they have to tear apart Gunbuster to get the core going. I understand. I also understand that their movements enact with that, but were we to believe this entire time that the front of her shirt was the front of Gunbuster? Girl, they just wanted that tit exposed. They just wanted a boob. Like, I don't understand. She had a leotard on underneath the crop top. So why didn't she just rip the crop top and expose the leotard underneath? Why did her boob have to be exposed? And then when they got out of there and flying away, both of her boobs were exposed. So I'm like, show. Huckleberry, show. Let's be real. I've seen a lot of unnecessary nudity. I have not quite seen as much unnecessary nudity as I have for Gunbuster. It's been a while. Even when they were like in the changing room getting ready, like we just had to show them like in their underwear. I was like, man, fulfilling that quota, right? Not since the days of Berserk have I seen so much unnecessary nudity. Right before Noriko's dad died on the bridge, he just whipped his pants off like the full Monty. Because he had to, of course. I'm like, Oda, was this all your perverted idea to get women to undress by making them man the Gunbuster? Is that why you did it? So they would have to like strip down? Was that your idea? How dare you, sir, you pervert. Let's not speak ill of the dead. I do love the idea that the heart of the Gunbuster is what ignites the catalyst for the bomb. I do think that's a really cool like mechanism that happens. I like the symbolism of that, right? It's literally Noriko's heart saving humanity, which is great. By the way, Amano, she looks amazing. Amano has never looked better than she's looked in this episode. I know I've said it before, but she looks incredible. All of the sequences. One thing the black and white also does really well is it highlights shadows and their expressions perfectly. I thought that was really nice. I liked that. But then, yeah, it ignites, gets the bomb going, and they all warp out of there and retreat. And poor Jung, her crying onto the glass table. You guys better come back alive. You have to. I feel bad because that's the last time, to our knowledge, that Jung sees them. Unless they're all robots in the future. May Mom see Auntie Noriko again. Man, I mean, Kimiko looks like she's in her 50s. Don't get me wrong. But, damn, I would assume she's going to live 20 more years after that. And then we do the 12,000 years later. That threw me out. That tripped me up. That was wild. So wild. And then as they're floating back from space in like the skeletal remnants of Gunbuster, and Noriko's like 12,000 years, and her shirt's like all completely ripped now for reasons. I'm like, did they just warp to 12,000 years later? Is that where it sent them? And they're looking for Okinawa in Japan. And Amano's like, after all we did humanity die out? Which I'm like, ladies, 12,000 years is a long time. If Earth had died out after 12,000 years, I probably wouldn't be surprised. But then they see the lights and it says, welcome back. I'm like, that's crazy. And they're like, okay, we made it back. We're home. And she's like, thank you, Gunbuster. And then they say goodbye. Now they say goodbye. I'm like, I'm guessing, did they jettison out the two of them? Like jettison back to Earth in their spaceships? I'm assuming it's their spaceships and not literally their souls leaving. I am assuming so, because they jettisoned back towards, yeah, it looked like space pods going back towards the city that's in the shape of Welcome Back, which is wild. Absolutely wild. Well, let's not waste any more time and get hooked up here with the extras. Now, there are three sets of extras, which it's like almost 30 minutes worth, which is wild that we have that much that we're going to look at. So Sunspots hooked me up with these, and what Sunspot said is the very first, there are 6 shorts, so there's 9 altogether, but about the first 14 minutes are going to be the first 6 shorts, which were science lessons from 1988 to 1995. They were 6 shorts included with the original releases. So I guess these OVAs, each one came with each episode, and the OVAs were released between 1988 and 1995, which is wild that it was that long. That's like 7 years. But yeah, so each short is for the other one. Then it said Renewal X is from 2000, 5 years later. There were 3 new shorts that were included with the DVD release that totals 8 minutes. DVD release? What? That feels so 2000. And then New Science Lessons was in 2012, which was 2 new shorts that were included with the Blu-ray release that were 10 minutes. Blu-rays, it's like, I love that we have the first 6 science lessons were with the VHS tapes. There were 3 more with the DVD and 2 more with the Blu-ray. So, okay, there's 11 total. All right. That's actually amazing. I love that. And these all were created within the span of, 98, 2008, within the span of like almost 25 years. That's crazy talk. So, okay. So the first 6 shorts are going to be the old ones from the VHS. The 3 in the middle are going to be for the DVD in 2000, and the last 2 are going to be 2012. What a wild time. Anno, one thing about Anno that is so crazy is that you have stuff that he's created from the 80s, and then he goes back to 25 years later. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Okay. I loved every second of that. That was great. Oh, y'all. Oh, I'm so glad that I got to watch those. The science lessons were great. You could definitely, I love that you could tell, even within the 90s one, like the late 80s to the mid 90s, you could tell like the way that the computer screen changed and everything, and Gainax had the logo. And then the 2001 was not really any science lessons. The 2001 was just like updating the animation, which was kind of cool. But then the one for 2012 was adorable. Like, I would learn from Noriko, and I would learn from Kazumi 100%. That was so cool. Y'all, Gunbuster has been so much fun. So much fun. We've talked about it in the comments, and I'm really excited to read everybody's comments for episode 5 and episode 6 because they've all been so wonderful to read. But I walked into this series thinking like, oh, it's going to be 6 episodes. It's just going to be like a little quick series, and it's going to be, about a mech or whatever. But I had no clue what I was getting into. Anno, really, I'm glad he took this project because it was a chance for him to show off a little bit of his style, a precursor of Neon Genesis to come. It gave us such a fun character in Noriko. I'm not gonna lie, I said it during the shorts, but when we found out that one voice is Yumiko, which I'm guessing maybe Yumiko's tied to the movie or Diebuster or everything, I didn't care for her voice. I'm so sorry. Yumiko's voice sounded like That girl that's trying to be really squeaky and has a high voice like this all the time. Which no, I can't do it. I was like, oh no. It sounded like the voice you would expect out of like an English dub when they're really trying to be like a squeaky girl voice. Sometimes it gets a little much and I'm like, ooh, we could tone that a little bit. We could add some nuance to that maybe. I don't know. I'm not a voice actor. What am I to say that? But who am I to say that? But yeah, I don't know. Interesting. There's curiosity there, piqued for sure. But yeah, everything about this series, the pacing of it has been amazing. The animation has been great. I love 80s and 90s animation. I'm all about it. The character development. Noriko is a fully fleshed character, and our girl is a hero. I love her. I love her standing up and saving the world multiple times. I love that. It had that Sailor Moon-esque vibe of, we don't need no man, but if we do, they're gonna do some things and be supportive, and that's great because like Smith Torn was such a good character. R.I.P. Smith, like best one-shot character in a while that I've seen in anime. I loved Smith's character. Taking him from us in one episode was the cruelest thing you could do. And then Jung and Amano and everybody's relationships, and then Oda in there as the titular mentor figure. Just, it checks off so many boxes. And the one thing I'm sad about is it's only 6 episodes. But it's one of those series where they packed so much into 6 episodes but made it so good. I'm torn because I want it to be longer, but I can't imagine it any more perfect if it was. So it's like, it's just me being greedy at that point. So if my greed overwhelms me, I may go back and watch Gunbuster in the movie. We'll see. I'm adding it to my list of sequel series that I'll eventually poll and see where we go to from there. But y'all, this was an amazing series, and I hope you all enjoyed these reactions and discussions. I know it was a quick series. There's already going to be a series replacing this. We are going to take a break next week on Patreon and on YouTube. I've decided, as I said in my June update video, and I'm going to say in my July update video as well, I'm going to take a week's break in between most of the series that I have on the channel, just to give a week off, let everybody kind of digest. And then after our break next week, we'll start back with a brand new series. And as Noriko and Amano have taught us, we can only move forward. Hashtag no regrets. No regrets. But I want to give a special shout out and thank, first of all, Sunspots for getting these shorts for me to watch and those extras, and also for being moderator of this series. You were amazing. Thank you so much for checking the comments. I know you said you're going to check the comments for episodes 5 and episode 6 to make sure nobody spoils me on Gunbuster and all that. I appreciate it. So thank you so much for being so kind and being an amazing moderator and person sharing these files with us. Thank you to everybody on Patreon and YouTube who have watched this series with me and who have commented. I've had so much fun. Neon Genesis Evangelion is one of my favorite series, and I've missed it. So knowing that when I found out in episode 2 that this was also made by Anno, it made my heart swell, and it made me fall in love with the series even more because it felt like another breath of Anno coming back in my life, and I was like, oh, I missed this. And so, makes me also want to go rewatch Neon Genesis, so that might happen. And then finally, thank you all on Patreon and thank you all on YouTube for supporting the channel and for being so kind. I hope you stick around to see what's coming next on the channel. I hope you go watch other reactions and definitely watch Land of the Lustrous and Neon Genesis if you haven't. You need to. But thank you all so much for joining me on this journey with Gunbuster. It was short, but it was amazing. And now I'm going to go and edit this video and get it ready. So, in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I will be back very soon to aim for the top with some more reactions. Bye!